Disclaimer: the following episode is a conversation between two friends, so it is subject to loud noises and lots of laughter, so please mind your ears. Now, back to our regularly scheduled episode. I never came up with one of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking. Albert Einstein. Hi, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Misadventures of the Mind podcast, hosted by me, your clinical child and adolescent psychologist, alias Kalik Nadal. And today is the second episode of double digits. Today is episode 11, 1-1. Some might say 11 is a lucky number. Some might say 11 is, has some sort of significant meaning or something of the sort. But today I feel like I agree, not just because, as per always, I feel like it's going to be a good one, but because I have the first guest of spring today, and I'm not gonna show or say who it is just yet because I feel like they need a proper introduction. And before they get their introduction, of course, if I have new listeners, welcome. Hey, this is the podcast that talks about life. It talks about emotions, it talks about growing up, and everything in between. And if this is your first episode, and you're not really sure what it is we're gonna talk about, today's episode might be an interesting one because, as the title suggests, we're gonna talk about the confessions of a psychologist. Now I'm a psychologist. If you didn't know, well, now you know. Clinical child and adolescent, to be specific. And I felt like it might be interesting to shed some light on what that means. Shed some light on a day-to-day task, responsibility of what it is a psychologist might do. So, as I said, it's gonna be a good one. But you know how we start these episodes. We have to start with a misadventure of the mind. And one today, it's not really one that is specifically coming from myself, but what I feel like might be a misadventured mind of the general public when they think about a psychologist. And that is one that convinces you that your therapist is not a real person with real feelings like yourself. Tough. Sorry to break it to you, but they're also feeling maybe even more than you. But we're gonna get into that. But for now, I need to introduce my guest because, she's a special one. She is not only one of my closest friends from Curaçao. She's also brown, very much melanated. Just a fun person. I've known her for, I think, 8 years now. We met in the first year of uni, so that was a long time ago, and honestly, my age is showing. But I'm not gonna dispel too much of her information. I feel like she can do much of that herself.
Hi guys! It's Zoe Gomez, proud YDK UD Curaçao clinical child and adolescent psychologist. Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So tell the people, Zoe, what is something that defines you? What is something, and I feel like that's a really deep question, and personally, whenever I get the question of, okay, tell me about yourself, I'm like,
blank.
Who
am I?
Who am I? Right. What? But yeah, we're here. So we have to somehow let the people know, what do you feel like is your most defining characters?
The first thing that comes to mind is calm, I think. I'm the quiet girl, calm. You will hear my voice, but what comes out of it is how can I say that? It's important. It's
it has some stuff.
Yeah. But I'm an introvert. I love to be alone. I love to do my own thing. But I also love to have fun with my friends. Yeah, but the biggest thing I would say is calm. I'm a calm person.
Yeah, she says that she doesn't really talk a lot. Not facts, because I feel like, and in my soul, I feel like somehow, ironically, that is what connected us together. We're You're quiet, I'm quiet, we should be quiet together. And especially at like a Dutch university where it's predominantly just Dutch kids and they're white.
No, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Like, I remember this so clearly. It was the first week of university, and I was sitting in class, and then I saw you, and I was like, wait, she seems so...
You like familiar.
Yeah, she seems so familiar. I know her. Like, I've seen her before.
You're right.
And then the introduction rounds came.
You're like,
and
yes,
and you said I'm from Aruba, and I'm like, oh, so it's impossible, but like from there I knew like we were meant to be friends. So because like my consciousness like already knew you from I don't know,
that's
another lifetime.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. This is not related to the topic, but do you feel like, you know how people say that sometimes when you get a deja vu or something, that it's like your what is it, like past memory or past soul is like...
No, I really do believe that. Because with some people, I just have like such a beautiful connection, and I'm like, no, like...
There must be something. Yeah, that's
sure.
So cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. You said like your consciousness was basically like giving you a sign that we kind of like knew each other and we were destined to be friends. And I remember when I went from the Dutch to the English, I was like, dang, are we still gonna be friends? If I make the step to like, you know, continue the friendship, is it gonna be reciprocated? Like, is it mutual, you know? And then like at the end of our bachelor, we graduated at the same time. And then we saw each other at like the diploma ceremony. And then in that moment, I thought, nah, we're destined to be together for sure. And then like, you know, COVID happened like a year after. And then you did your internship in Curacao. And then I did my internship in Aruba. And you started your master's before me. But then at the end of it, we still graduated at the same time again.
That's crazy.
And I just thought like that is something that I always had in the back of my head. And I thought, Zoe's just stuck with me forever.
Yeah, no,
to be honest.
There's so many things that happen that just like align it. Yeah. Like my mom like bought a house like next to yours.
Right. That is crazy. Yeah. Dang, life be crazy. I truly feel like soulmates are also like a real thing. Like once like two genuine souls like come together, I feel like it really has to take a lot to get them apart. But anyway, that's conversation for another day. Today we're here to talk about psychology, what it means to be a psychologist. And like I said, you know, some people might think that or have the idea and the concept of what a therapist means to them. And that often includes the fact that a therapist is almost like a person that is near robotic, where they is just there to provide information, advice, or answers to a specific question. And with that, they might forget that a therapist is also just a real person with real feelings and real thoughts and even real issues. The phrase where they say a psychologist always needs their own psychologist. You hardly ever go through life not experiencing certain negative situations, or maybe even that you've had a negative encounter with a person or a set of people. So it's very hard to expect a therapist or psychologist or your life coach or whoever is there to give you advice doesn't also go to someone else to get advice for their own life. But as we do in every single episode, we have to define what it means to be a psychologist or just psychology in general. As per always, friend of the pod, Merriam-Webster. And not just Merriam-Webster in this case, but also other websites and other sources. I have to check all of them. And all of them are in agreement. So that was, just refreshing and also very simple. But according to all of these sources and source materials, a psychologist is one who practices psychology, obviously. And then you're questioning me like, okay, duh, but what is psychology? What does psychology entail? And in simple terms, in layman's terms, it's literally the science or the study of behavior and the mind. So whenever you get the question or you are presented with the term psychology, the first thing that you should think about is mind. Everything that is associated with the mind, the origin of the word comes from the Latin word psyche, and psyche means your mind. And the psyche is not just what you're thinking, but also all of the processes that are included in this. So that's why you have biopsychology. You also have neuropsychology. You have specific branches of psychology that really focus on what is going on, in other words, behind the scenes when it comes to psychology. So with that being said, of course, I can also look up what it means to be a psychologist, but seeing as how I have a psychologist in-house, excluding myself, Zoe, what does psychology mean to you? And also, second part question, what does it mean for you to be a psychologist? Like I said, Zoe girl, she's a Caribbean girly, but specifically from Curacao, and there the primary speaking language is Papiamentu, as opposed to Papiamento, which is a superior language, but that's conversation for another day. So answering this question, she's gonna say it in her native tongue, and then at the end I can just translate it to the best of my ability. I mean, if you understand it, more power to you, and if you don't, I'm here to let you guys meet her halfway as well. So Zoe, the floor is yours.
Sí, psicología para mí está eigenlijk kiko gente está así. First of all, tem sowieso dos maneiras que eu provar que ante prometa que gente tá mira algo, tende escucha, botar a informação de bo zintuigen ante eri from that bota behave. Dus bota assim algo que informação que bota receive de bo zintuigen. Pero outro também tá que por sinti, dus lichamelijk, bota receive informatie ante eri bota doen unificação. Então, esse é duas maneiras na minha opinião interessante para seguir, buscar ou informar me mesmo Dus esse me querer da psicologia. Dus toda informação que você tem, como você verwerken, que gedachtes beting erbij en to como você uitding bo gedrag.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, it's you focus or your interest kind of lies more so in the behavioral aspect, but not just how your senses can be translated into how you behave on a day-to-day, but also what you feel and what you sense in your body and how that can make you act or behave a certain way. In short, in a very brief way, that's kind of the thing that makes you very passionate about psychology. Second question, this is just a follow-up question to what you said. Can you maybe inform the people how or why you got inspired to study psychology in the first place? Because I mean, everyone wants to be a psychologist, but then it's like while they're studying, they're like,
nah, not for me. I wasn't really called specifically to be a psychologist. I was just always interested in why people do what they do, like human behavior. I've always been very quiet and observant, and my family is the opposite. They're very loud and they all have like quite a big personalities. So I've always been curious to know, okay, why are they like that? And I'm like a bit more quiet.
Yeah.
So that was one of the
main
reasons I chose psychology, just to, get to know myself and others a bit more.
Okay. Interesting. I feel like that is the most common answer as well. I feel like with me at least, I can relate to that where my family, especially my dad's side of the family is really, really like if you meet them, like you were at the wedding, their presence is very much known. And for me, also a fellow introvert, very much to myself, a little bit more reserved. Like of course with my friends and immediate close close circle, I'm more outspoken, but also very observant. So I always wondered if every person who studied psychology just has like the same exact reasoning for studying that. And I feel like it's that, or they just want to know why serial killers kill people. Like if you're a true crime person and love like docuseries, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, I used to love those documentaries and crime.
Falls asleep to
Yeah,
that.
I still do.
Honestly, same. Like, they just make me feel calm. Maybe that says something about our psyche, but
Yeah, they kind of say psychologists are psychos themselves.
you didn't
but...
hear it here. Anyway, so just get back to, the terms psychology and psychologist. Second part of the question is, what does being a psychologist mean to you? And how do you feel like, and I feel like this is probably also like a follow-up question, but do you feel like the way how you view yourself as a psychologist, has that changed throughout the years of not just studying but also working with children?
Yeah, definitely. I think while I was doing the bachelor's, I didn't know that I wanted to be a psychologist as in therapist, like counseling. I was mainly interested in knowing everything on psychology. So
more like research based.
Yeah. I was very interested in not only developmental psychology, but also economic and consumer psychology, social psychology, all of it. I was just really enjoying my study at that point. So I wasn't really thinking about what it would be or look like after I finish. But when I finished and I entered the role of a psychologist, for me the most important thing is that it's a collaborative role and not just a giving advice role.
Say more.
If you know what I mean.
I don't. I'm sure, I feel like I do, but I feel like for the listener...
Because I feel like I used to think psychologists kind of just give advice and then that's it. Like you kind of...
So it's like more so the stereotyped version of what a psychologist is.
Yeah. So you go to a psychologist, you explain your problem, and then they tell you what to do. For me now, it's really important to go into a session knowing that it's a collaborative work. So you and your client, you're gonna work together to come to a solution. For their problems or
their development and growth, basically. So it's less about giving the advice and more about working as a team to come up with a solution for their problem question, basically. Okay, that's cool. I like that answer. And do you feel like after having that mindset of it's more collaborative rather than advice, do you feel like you also see a specific trajectory that you want to go into? Because you said that you started off during your uni years, at least, that you were more so thinking research, economic and consumer, and maybe even health, dare I say, and more figuring out why as opposed to the how with your clients. So do you feel like because of the work that you've been doing that there is a vision that you see for yourself, so to speak?
That's the thing. I don't know yet. Like, I love learning, so
a student of life.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like as a psychologist, you are a student for life because, new sciences keep coming out and you have to keep educating yourself on new methods and such. But as for me and the role I see myself in the future, I don't know yet. I kind of want to do a bunch of things to see what I really want to keep doing on a long term. But for now, I'm enjoying this role of a psychologist.
This ride that you're on currently.
Yeah,
I love that. And I think I just really appreciate your honesty with you saying you don't know. Because personally, I think whenever I get asked the question of what are you gonna do now? I remember at the end of like bachelor's and also master's, it's like, okay, you have your degree, what now? And it's like, I don't really know. However, I feel like I can't say I don't know because I feel like I should know. That's just a personal misadventure of my mind where it's like, it's okay not to know. It's okay not to have an answer to every question. And I think that, I mean, you didn't say this, but that is something that made me think about like my role as well as a psychologist, where it's like there's freedom in figuring out stuff with your client.
Exactly.
Like not having the answer and both of you looking for that answer together. I think that that's just such a beautiful thing, and you know, being honest with them. But we'll get into that of like, you know, us also having feelings and thoughts. But for now, I hope this gave you a better understanding of what psychology is. Maybe you also have a new perception or concept even of what it means to be a psychologist, because Zoe explained it very beautifully. And if you have questions, that's given. It's fine. It's okay. You can DM me on Instagram, on YouTube in the comments, or on Spotify in the little section down below. Or you can use Google because we're living in the new age. So, okay, so obviously we talked about what it means to be a psychologist, what is the actual definition of psychology, and also got the perspective of Zoe the psychologist. And I was personally curious because in my mind, I had a list of things that I thought people usually go to when they think about psychology. And Zoe, you mentioned it as well a little bit earlier when you said you never really saw yourself as a therapist, or that wasn't really your aspiration, because in your mind, you also had a stereotypical view on what it means to be a psychologist. So I was just curious. So now we're gonna talk about the common misconceptions that people may or may not have when they think about either psychology and psychologist and what it means to be a psychologist. And, you know, I had a poll or question on Instagram and a couple people sent in their responses. But before I get into that, I'm curious for you. Have you received some comments or, I don't know, opinions of people who said, I didn't know that you do that. I thought, insert their misconception here. What has been your experience with certain and most common misconceptions?
I think the most common one is that we can read minds. The answer is yes, we can. No, we can't. We cannot.
Unfortunately.
Read minds. No. We analyze thoughts and feelings and your behavior as good as possible, and then we go from there. No, but the amount of times people come to me and they're like, so what am I thinking?
But they say it with like a straight face as well. Like they're actually expecting you to say like, oh yeah, I can see that this and this. And I'm like, I literally don't know you.
Exactly. But I think another kind of relates to this one is people come up to me and they kind of tell a very short story or behavior that a friend or family member did, and they're like, what do you think? Like, is this ADHD or is this insert a disorder? Disorder. And I'm like, I don't know that person. I can tell you a bunch of things, but it's not going to be accurate because I don't know them. I've never seen them.
Yeah, they kind of want like a easy, quick like session. And is that like the one that you get confronted with the most, or are there also different ones?
Yeah, another one I get a lot is, can you prescribe medicine?
Whoa.
Or even clients.
Ask for like a prescription or like...
No, they don't necessarily ask, but they expect me to know about like every single medication there is.
They say like oxymoron, this thing, and I'm like, is that double X? Okay, all right, got it.
Yeah. No, I usually just like nod and then I do my research after.
Yeah.
I just say we'll come back to this next week.
Okay. Do you have any more misconceptions or conceptions that you do want to add to this section before I spill the tea and call out everyone that also gave an answer?
I think one that I hear a lot, but it kind of relates to the ones we already spoke about, is that we just listen.
Yeah.
Psychologists just listen, and then they give you advice, and then the session is over.
Right.
I mean, obviously listening is a skill.
It sure is.
You can listen, but you cannot hear, or like
Or it's you can hear, but you don't always listen.
exactly. So it is a very important skill, but it's not the only thing that we do.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that you mentioned that, because a lot of people that I also hear, oh, my friends always come to me with their problems. So, I was thinking maybe I can just do this as a profession. And that's great that you think that way, but you also have to assess and really ask yourself whether you do have the skill for listening, because it is something that can come very naturally to people, but it's also something that you kind of have to continue to practice and fine tune, almost, where it's like it's listening, but also it's understanding.
Exactly.
It's more than just you being an open ear and them venting to you, or them feeling like, oh, I can just word vomit and emotion vomit and just let everything out there, and then you're like, that was a lot. Now I'm taken aback. But yeah, like you said, it is a skill, definitely. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but no, I'm curious. What do the people think?
So I feel like I'm gonna start off with the more simple one as opposed to the others, because it is something that is kind of a given, and I understand that a lot of people feel that way. The first one I saw, it was just one word, and it said healing.
Okay.
So whenever this person thinks about therapy or a psychologist, they immediately think that is a process of healing. And they didn't really elaborate on the answer that they gave. So, this is just me assuming and kind of filling in what I think they meant. And I think that when people or this person mentioned healing, I think more so on like recognizing that you have issues or underlying traumas, and going into and deciding for yourself that you want to heal from that and you want to become a better person for yourself. And that's number one. What do you think about that?
I love that one. I think that's a good one. I think just deciding to go to a therapist is already a big step.
For sure.
Talking about your issues with a complete stranger is already a big step. So I like that one. I like that answer. Healing.
It's very short and sweet. Very simple.
Yeah, it's part of the healing, I would say. It's not all of it. Like, 'cause healing is broad. But it's definitely a part of it.
Yeah. What do you think is other parts of a healing process?
I think it's literally just changing how you see things, how you see your life, changing habits, changing your mindset, changing people you're around, and going to a psychologist can help with that. But you can also do like some of that on your own, I think, if you do the work. So part of it does include a psychologist that can give you like good advice on some things, but I think most of it, a big part of it is you do by yourself, inner work.
And this is not something that we mentioned yet, but I feel like a lot of people, or a common misconception could be that people think that the psychologist just gives you the advice and gives you all of the answers. It's not just you coming there for advice, like you're doing the work. I'm just there to kind of guide you and steer you in the right direction. But at the end of the day, it is you who decided this healing process, and thus you also have to decide to do the work. But yeah, healing. Cool. Are you healing and have started your healing journey? question for yourself, because honestly, I feel like not just psychologist to listener, but also person to person. And again, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to me as well. I feel like all of us can heal, and it doesn't always have to be from a traumatic event or something very drastic that happened in your life, but you can also heal from something that you personally did to someone else, and maybe you feel a little bit guilty or you feel ashamed and you don't really know how to deal with that. So maybe you also need to bring it forward and then heal from the process that you are a person who can make mistakes. Another one, and I guess this one also relates and kind of already got an answer from what we think about it, but another one I got is that if they need one, it literally said as an answer, I need one. And I thought, you know what? Double points for this person because they're being honest with themselves. And also admitting that you need a psychologist or a therapist or coach or whatever have you is already something that is kind of taken for granted. And I think that this person deserves their flowers, and you deserve a spotlight, not just from us to you, but from you to you, and realize that, this is already step one in becoming a better version of yourself, or step one in that growth and development that you so seek. So, good on you. Shout out to you, person. I know you're listening, so shout out to you. What do you think about that one?
I like this one as well, because everyone kind of needs to talk to somebody or write something down. I feel like a lot of us, we have a lot of thoughts, and sometimes it gets so busy in your mind that it gets difficult to put everything,
navigate through your thoughts. Kind of.
So even just talking to your friend or to a family member, it kind of gives you perspective and kind of helps you understand your own thoughts, or even writing it down and you see what you wrote, and then at the end of writing all of your thoughts, you also get to navigate those thoughts and put them essentially in order.
Or at least gives you more insight on what you're thinking.
Yeah. So I think that's obviously a part of, a session with a psychologist. So I think I like the answer because everyone kind of goes through that.
Yeah.
When they have a moment that they can't really make sense of their thoughts and everything that's going on in their mind.
No, I agree. Not to cut us off too early or anything, but we do have other things that I do want to talk about. And one of the last ones that I do want to bring forward, someone said, and they gave the answer of, why is it that a therapist or psychologist always expects the person, so in this case a client, to start asking questions or start talking first?
Okay.
Yeah, I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I thought that would be also an interesting one to bring forward to get your perspective on that, because I never really saw it that way. And maybe it depends on the type of therapist you are, but I feel like for me, I never expect people to start talking because I know how confronting it can be.
Yeah, me neither. I always kind of start a conversation, kind of lightly, small talk, if I notice that the client is a bit nervous. So I never kind of expect my client to start the conversation, because I just, as you said, I know how difficult of a step it would have been.
Yeah, exactly.
To even come here.
Yeah.
So, but it's an interesting one.
And that I feel like is also something that people don't really talk about, is that not every therapist is meant for you. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of situation, so you do have to find a therapist that connects with you. In our field of work, being judgment-free is kind of where we operate from. So you spilling your guts and being vulnerable is not something that we take lightly, because we understand and we can see sometimes with words, but also non-verbally most of the time, that it is a really big step to even say and admit that you're feeling a type of way, you know? So that's the first thing that came to mind when I read it.
And even like as a psychologist, speaking from experience, if you in a moment you don't really know what to say, you can share that with the client. And tell them, okay, I hear you. I think I'm thinking about what you said. Give me a second. I need to think about it. Or you know, something like that. But speaking out loud, hardop denken with your client, I think that would also strengthen the rapport you have with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Another misconception I would say is that only people with mental disorders go to a psychologist.
Right. Say more. Like, tell the people what you really think, Zoe.
Like, only if a child has concentration and attention problem, they need to go to a psychologist. My child is depressed, need to go to the psychologist. Anxious, psychologist. So only if it's like
something serious. Yeah. So when do you think, or at what point do you think people should see a psychologist?
I think at the point where it's disrupting your normal flow of life. I think that's when you should look into it. And by that I don't mean disrupting as in like you can't do anything anymore, like you're stuck at house. No, if you're like dealing with a question, for example, and it's really hard to, you know, get an answer, you can just go. You can like talk, maybe do 1 or 2 sessions, and then you're done. Like, the possibility.
And this is just me like playing devil's advocate at this point. What about the people who are thinking about that, where they do have a question, and let's say it's more of like minor daily hassles, and let's say you're dealing with stress or something, and you just need that external person to help you navigate that, and you mentioned 1 or 2 sessions, maybe even 3. Do you think that people would be open to doing that, knowing how expensive it is? Because if we're honest about it, it's not just the 1 or 2 sessions, but there's also like the intake session, for example, which is also something you do pay for. So how would you encourage someone who is maybe skeptical about seeking that professional help because of how costly it is?
So I can only speak for people living in the Netherlands, because we all pay health insurance, and using that you can go to your huisarts,
general practitioner.
Exactly, and they can refer you then to a POH, and that's a assistant mental health care person, and you can go to them with your issues, mostly stress related issues, more of the smaller issues, and if you need more help, then they refer you to a psychologist or therapist.
So usually, like Netherlands at least, they are kind of covered by your health insurance, so then you don't have to pay extra from your own pocket.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good advice. If I'm not mistaken, in Aruba, there is also the same, because Aruba, the health insurance is AZV. And I remember during my internship as well, there were a lot of people who came there who didn't really have to pay out of pocket, because the company that they worked for, or AZV in general, covered like an X amount of sessions. So, you know, maybe for you, if you're thinking, oh, it's just unaffordable, or you feel like it's just too costly, there are options. You can always ask or look up your health insurance plan, or you ask your general practitioner if they can refer you to a psychologist. Cool. I think that kind of also sums up it gives clarity to the listener on some things that we experienced as a conception or misconception in our work field. You know, the next section I have is titled Psychologists Are Real People Too, with real emotions, real thoughts. They feel just like the clients that also come to them. And for you, do you feel like you being a psychologist has been an advantage or a disadvantage for your own mental health? She's already giving me the eyes. Bombastic side eye. So, Zoe.
Wow. Good question. I think it has been an advantage for sure, because while I'm doing this work, I'm getting to know myself also better. I'm giving out, advice and techniques, but I'm also using the same techniques that I learned because it does help.
Yeah.
But before using that advice, you have to be aware. You have to be aware of your emotions, what you feel. So I'm literally looking at my notes and applying it to myself. But there are some days that I don't follow what I preach.
So the same practice which you preach does not apply to us, basically.
Exactly. So in those moments, I'm like, okay, I'm working with these clients and I talk with them how to cope with whatever, and sometimes I don't do that when it comes to myself. So in those moments, I'm like, okay, am I like fooling these people? Are these parents bringing their child to like a very unserious person? But then I'm like, no, like this is normal. Like, like some days you want to do, some days you don't have the energy to be
fully present, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because honestly, you're saying that and I feel triggered. I feel personally attacked because honestly, I relate, because I also see that in me where it's like, am I a clown? Am I fooling these people? Do I have a mask of like, yeah, trust me? And then behind the mask, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And, some days it's obviously more prominent than others. Like, I don't have a problem or I don't have a doubt that I know what I'm doing. But some days it's like, if I'm feeling like this, why can't I fix myself, So it's like, how do you deal with those days?
Honestly, I just tell myself like, this is okay. Like, tomorrow's another day. And I think kind of helps with my sessions as well, because the clients tell me this also. Like, the clients are like, okay, this week I didn't really do the homework you gave me because it was just a hard week. It was a difficult week and I didn't, write in my journal or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I have those days too.
Yeah.
So you kind of connect in that sense with them, and I think that kind of helps them to not feel as bad and feel like
they have to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like it's a lot easier said than done as well, to just be like, it's okay, tomorrow's another day. Because I feel like with me personally, like something that I try to make a habit of is waking up at a specific time and early, so I can just follow my morning routine, right? So I wake up, drink water, stretch, do my meditation or set my intention for the day, and then I start everything else. And some days it's like I just slept really poorly or didn't really work out, and then I feel like absolute trash for the whole day, because it's not just the fact that I missed my morning routine, but also I feel like because I didn't do my morning routine, that the rest of the day just went to absolute garbaggio. So, it's like then I also try to have a lot of grace with myself and let myself think about like, it's okay, like today is just today and tomorrow will be tomorrow, and some days it works and other days it feels like, stop lying to me, Ali. Like, I'm just talking to myself like, stop lying, today feels horrible and I feel like I shouldn't feel anything else other than horrible.
Yeah, and feeling horrible, like, what is so wrong with with that.
Right. Great question. So we just here triggering me. Personally attacked. I feel like you're right. I should just sit in my feelings. And I do tell people, just sit in your feelings. But when it's turned back to myself, it's easier said than done. And then to also ask myself, like, why don't you just feel everything?
Exactly.
Yeah, great question. The benefits of having like a psychologist friend, to be honest.
Not just challenging your thoughts, but like challenging like your feelings also. Like, what is so bad about feeling mad for the whole day or feeling low energy for the whole day? Like,
that's, yeah.
You've been productive because you felt the whole day. You've sat in your feelings and emotions the whole day.
It's just been a great ball of emotion.
Yeah, and maybe you had to.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Those days.
Yeah, that's true. On that note, actually, I didn't have it written down, but from your perspective and from your experience in your family, you're maybe the psychologist of your family, but like with friends, you have more than one friend that is a psychologist. What is that like for you?
Kibuka man.
Si bari para ako, it's better or worse pating amiga of amigo ng kutame a studia psikolohiya.
Oh. That's a good question. Honestly, after 5 o'clock, I'm not a psychologist anymore.
Fair. Yeah.
That also, like, when I'm with friends, I'm not a psychologist. So don't ask me anything. Obviously, unconsciously, I will be,
the psychologist. Yeah, because it's kind of ingrained.
But I don't do it consciously. So I'm not really looking or thinking about that, if it makes sense.
Okay.
Like, I'm not kind of I'm not thinking, okay, like, I'm speaking to another psychologist, like, is this different than when I'm speaking with my lawyer friend? No.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't really, or you try to keep those two parts separated, kind of, where it's like you're here like in the weekend. It's not like you're going to your psychologist friend's house, you're just going to your friend's house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh,
but it's a good question. Like, I'm gonna think about it. Yeah.
Cool.
What about you though? Like, can I ask you the same question?
No, of course. For me, I feel like it's a two-parter. I feel like it's both nice and also not nice. Like, I feel like how people sometimes feel like I'm just analyzing them because I'm a psychologist, when that's not really the case. Like you said, I switch that thing off as I get out of work. I'm like, last client's house, okay, done. I'm turning in my psychologist coat, title, whatever, in for the day. On the other hand, I do feel like when I speak to my psychologist friends about either what I'm feeling or, we can actually just bond over how we feel, I think that is something that is really refreshing.
Yeah, for sure. I can relate to that. Actually, like, I do think something I appreciate about having psychologist friends and non-psychologist friends, sometimes I just feel low energy, down about something, and sometimes I just kind of want to share my feelings and not necessarily get advice back.
Yeah, thanks for your honesty. Like, it's really refreshing. Like, it really is just something that I really appreciate, and I feel like that honesty is both your character and your personality, but also because you studied psychology and understand your character is why you have the ability to speak so honestly and transparently.
I agree. I used to be very insecure about my personality and me being very quiet and introverted. And once I kind of got to know myself a little bit more during the study and my work, I started to give myself much more grace. And I just love being me, being quiet. Like, that's me. And
if you don't like it, that's your problem.
Exactly. The people that are meant to be around me are around me, and they're all I need.
And I think that you said that so beautifully. Like, you unapologetically accept who you are, where it's like you know who you are and you're not afraid to show who you are, and the people who choose not to or do accept it, then, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder for you, my fellow loyal listener, do you also accept who you are? Have you found the person who genuinely lives inside of your heart and your soul and of course your mind? Because we are psychologists, so we always want to know what's going on in your mind. Like Zoe said, we can low-key read minds. Not really, but kind of, And the question for you is, can you also, and have you given yourself the opportunity and room to also be a mind reader of yourself? And with that, we're going to and kind of low-key end the episode. So I'm gonna ask my lovely guest to read us the affirmation of today so you can carry it with you today, tomorrow, in your weekend, the rest of your week, or even the new month. Like I said in the previous episode, we're officially going into springtime. So what is something that you're doing for yourself to encourage that growth, to encourage blossoming and blooming? So Zoe, take it away.
I affirm that I will fully embrace the depths of my mind and heart to allow myself to fully become and receive what is for me.
So, I never forget my Bible readers out there. Shout out to you. So, your biblical affirmation for today is found in Philippians 4, verse 18, and it is as followed. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And with that, I want to thank you once again for being here with us today. Not just me, but with us. My lovely guest Zoe, as I said, she really gave us insightful information on what it is to be a psychologist, what it's like on a day-to-day, but also the fact that we're also real people. We also have real feelings and real thoughts that sometimes push us forward and sometimes holds us back. And that is the way the cookie crumbles. You have good days and you have bad days, and that's perfectly fine. And I hope that it tickled your brain, it made you curious, and you can share it, discuss it, talk about it with your friends, with your family, with your loved ones, with your colleagues even. And share it on all things shareable. WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, whatever have you. Spread the word. Tickle someone else's brain. Pause. But as always, I hope to inform you on another episode of the Misadventures of the Mind podcast. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.